Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. In this episode, we'll be exploring how the Dharma can help us thrive and bring powerful presence to living in troubling times. Every episode of PRAJNA SPARKS takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We're so glad that you're joining us, and we ask that you give us a little bit of time today to subscribe and review our podcast if you haven't already. Alongside your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners. There can be a lot going on these days, much of which can feel quite troubling. War, starvation, environmental destruction and degradation, racial injustice, hatred, malice, all of it can feel quite overwhelming. What's a practitioner to do? I think for many of us, that's what drives us to the Dharma in the first place. We have some experience of suffering, discontent, what have you. Oftentimes it's very personal to us, but that's not to say that we're not also overwhelmed by the obstacles and problems that the world is facing and that we're made aware of through all of this interconnection of social media and instantaneous news that we get nowadays. While it's wonderful to be informed, it can also be quite distressing. So how do we work with this? Of course, there's so many different avenues to approach it, but as Buddhist practitioners, I find that working with view in particular is so crucial. We can go right back to the start, when the Buddha, in his teaching on the Four Truths of Noble Beings, right in that first truth, exhorts us to recognize dukkha, recognize suffering and discontent. When we're faced with these overwhelming, heartbreaking news stories, whether they be worldwide or right next door, that distress can frequently overwhelm us. Now, we certainly don't want to harden our hearts against feeling suffering, and Buddhist practice in no way recommends that. What we really want to do is cultivate the brave heart, which is wise, which uses what is immediately present and heartbreaking, not to shut us down, but to help spur us, to open our view, to take that heartbreak, feel it very acutely, but also recognize that we are not perceiving the entire picture. We don't want to be overthrown by appearances such that we fall into despondency. What a fine balance to walk. It seems to me like we often harden ourselves against others' suffering because it feels so overwhelming. That despair, that sense of helplessness, can feel so unnerving. We don't like to feel that way. And as we engage with the Buddha's teachings, we start to expand our view just a little bit, step by step, where we start to recognize that appearances, while they're experienced, aren't the full picture. This in no way negates the reality of suffering, the reality of discontent and distress, but it also goes a little bit beyond believing our experience of it. It helps us take a step back in our own minds and expand our view instead of getting so pinpointed only on the overwhelming pain or suffering or sorrow or grief. It helps us to recognize that we're not seeing things just as they are, that there's some aspect of complicity given to overwhelming situations by our ignorance and by our emotional reactivity to it. So what can we do? We can recognize dukkha, which particularly means recognizing not only this obvious suffering, which is so blatant, so overwhelming, and right in our face, but also recognizing the other forms of discontent, the subtler forms that make up this weave of samsara, the discontent that's there, even in pleasant experiences, lurking as kleshas, as the inability to make pleasant, enjoyable experiences last, just as they are, just as we would like them to. And even more so, that all-pervasive suffering of being composite, that lack of freedom to fully express and experience the innate, joyful, wise, powerful nature of mind that is our very essence, Buddha nature. As we encounter personal and societal and worldwide distressing instances in these troubling times, it can be helpful to pause, to recognize that all of these appearances, experiences, have causes. If we want to address the resultant suffering, we also need to address the cause, which in Buddhism we fundamentally understand to be ignorance and all of the self-clinging and disturbing emotions that afflict mind and drive it to engage in karmic actions of body, speech, and thought. Of course, this is, in many ways, the entirety of the path. One of the ways that we can work with it immediately is recognizing how our view traps us when we focus entirely on our experience as being the only thing, the only information that we're taking in, thinking that we've got the full picture. If we can expand our view to incorporate the recognition that this experience is a result of past causes, as well as being the cause of future experiences, then we start to get a little bit more wiggle room. We start to allow ourselves to feel that strong empathy, that heartbreak at witnessing tragedy, at witnessing the horrors of war, death, destruction, environmental annihilation, whatever it might be. Really allowing ourselves to feel it and letting that motivate us to do what's genuinely meaningful in the face of it, in the face of the fact of our mortality, in the face of the fact of impermanence. We start to recognize that there's the way things appear, and there's also an underlying truth to them that is beyond how we experience it. This teaching on the two truths, the truth of apparent reality and the truth of genuine reality, is incredibly vast, but we can bring it into our own experience by simply recognizing this continuation, this incredibly intricate weave of causes and conditions producing results that we're experiencing, and recognizing that we do have some power in what we say and what we do and what we engage with our mind. And if we use that power to cultivate love, kindness, beneficence, compassion, understanding, the wish for well-being for ourselves and others, that those are seeds that won't be wasted. This empowers us. It gives us fuel rather than shutting us down in the face of such overwhelming distress in the world. It's not easy, and it takes practice, it takes perseverance, and it is so rewarding. It is one of the gifts of the path for how to cultivate powerful presence in troubling times. Some seeds for contemplation that you might take with you throughout your day, turn over, and examine. Again, remembering that the Tibetan word for practice is to bring into your own experience. A first seed may be, what are the ways I get trapped by how I view and think about things? Another, where are the points in my thought-feeling process where I can pause and expand my view, bringing in spaciousness? What other seeds feel appropriate and inspiring to you today? This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA Sparks. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Stay tuned now for a guided meditation with Lamas Yeshe. Shivnee is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving your time to listen to this podcast. If you don't mind taking a little bit more time in your day to like, subscribe, share, and review PRAJNA Sparks, that would be much appreciated if you haven't done it already. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at PRAJNA Sparks. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit.
Welcome, friends. For today's meditation, we're going to look at one possible way to cultivate powerful presence in troubling times. To begin, settle into this time and space. Let yourself arrive wherever you are seated. If you can, take a comfortable seated position where your legs are grounded in some way. Your feet on the floor, perpendicular to your knees perpendicular to your hips as you sit in a chair, the spine upright, the chin slightly tilted downwards, or perhaps your legs are crossed on the floor in some comfortable way. Or maybe you are even lying down, as long as you're not sleepy. Whatever position you take, begin with an awareness of your connection to this earth, to the air we breathe, to the beings who populate this earth, to your own ancestors of body who have brought together genetic material that is uniquely you over centuries to make you possible. Ancestors of speech, so many individuals whose ideas, philosophies, opinions, feelings have touched you and somehow changed what you are in the world. And your ancestors of mind, beings who held sway over the mind stream you identify with throughout this life, who have brought any number of different influences into that mind stream. All of these ancestors are equally interconnected with the earth, the air, and all the beings surrounding them. Pause for a moment and allow yourself to just sink back into this web of interconnection. we'll begin, as we always do, with a brief period of shamatha, the practice of bringing into our experience mind's natural balance between stillness and lucidity. Should you get sleepy, that means we're leaning a little bit too much on the stillness aspect. Dial up the lucidity. If we get lost in thought, that means we're getting a little bit too caught up in all that awareness. Dial up the stillness. Dial yourself in till you find that sweet spot where you can let yourself rest in that balance of stillness and lucidity. As you come out of that delicate balance, allow that balance to become a little more dynamic. We're still letting go of the breath, of any monitoring of mind's sleepiness or agitation, and allow awareness to pull at your heart. Warm and gentle awareness. Place it at the level of your heart, within your body, where you can imagine a warm, gentle white light. And this imagination is a very vivid experience. Use your full sensory apparatus, not just visually. How does it look? What does it feel like within your body, on your skin, as the light rays pour out? What's the sound of its crackle? What does it taste like? Now experience it qualitatively as well. Invest that warm, intense, miniature sun at your heart with all the qualities of belonging, peace, openness, tenderness, love, strength, power, wisdom. Allow these warm, light, easeful rays of love, power, and wisdom to radiate from the center of your body at the level of your heart outward, filling your body from the crown of your head through your torso, your arms, legs, fingers, toes, seeping through every pore, soaking every cell, every molecule with boundless love, power, and wisdom. Relish it. Gently allow your sense of physicality to melt away. That sense of a boundary between me and out there, so that this awareness of the warm white light of boundless love, power, and wisdom extends beyond the limiting ideas you hold of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and otherwise. Allow yourself to experience you as the unbridled source of this tender, loving, beneficent power and wisdom. Relish that. Continue to expand beyond the confines of your skin as much as you're able, like a supernova, filling your immediate surroundings, the house or building you're in, the environment, the planet, the atmosphere, solar system, galaxy, and beyond, infinite space. Give yourself to the imaginative experience of relishing yourself as a source of tender love, beneficent power, and genuine wisdom. Without withdrawing from the farthest reaches of space and your awareness of you as this love, power, and wisdom, receive any kind of obvious dukkha. This is things like pain, sadness, sorrow, or anguish in your personal experience and your family, in the terrifying news of the day around the world. Allow yourself to hold that experience without shunning it, but as one part of this immensity that is your true nature, your Buddha nature. Now allow yourself to receive shifting dukkha. These are experiences of pleasure, either pleasure that you know is going to end and you can't stop, or pleasure that is tainted because you know of harms that are happening elsewhere that impinge your ability to completely enjoy that pleasure. And ultimately, the dukkha that comes of knowing that we can't just always feel this love, power, and wisdom that is our very nature. Now that's suffering. Hold that as just one small part of all that you are, reaching to the outer limits of space. Now receive powerlessness, the dukkha that pervades samsara, that we cannot have things the way we want. Neither can our neighbor, our friends, or our foes. That humans, animals, and all beings have been at each other's throats in a wild attempt to overcome this powerlessness, to exert control. Even this immensity, responsible for so many horrors in our own life, in history, and in the world today, is small against the immensity of the love, power, and wisdom of the true nature of mind, boundless in extent. Now allow yourself to recover the sense of you that's closer to what you're used to, but somehow, as much as you're able, allow the awareness in the background to hold the largeness of you, to refuse to submit to the limitations of the idea of self, and at the same time, rest in this moment. So bittersweet, so poignant. Letting go of any concepts, resting evenly in the expanded sense of awareness that cradles the suffering of the world with the intense wish, may I and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May I and all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And may I and all beings ever enjoy the complete bliss, free of all suffering. May I and all beings be free of the attachment and aversion that hold some close and others distant. Let this intention be the seed of your heart as you go out into the world. Don't sell yourself short. Meditation itself is action because it gives you the resources, the ample heart, and the resilience to meet the challenges of your day. Meditation thus empowers action giving you the energy and the strength to act as is appropriate for you. And meditation instills action with clarity, care, and wisdom that can easily be depleted as we go about our lives without the opportunity to refresh and restore our connection to the true nature of our mind, heart, and the interdependence that we share with absolutely all that lives. Please share any positivity that has come out of this practice today with all beings, that we and all beings may attain the complete and perfect awakening of Buddhahood. Thank you so much for your meditation, for your action, and for your loving, powerful wisdom. Sarva Mangalam.